Through Adversity is sponsored by MVS Autos, keeping you on the road. MVS Autos offer a range of vehicle services including MOT, servicing, repairs, welding, diagnostics, aircon and much more. Based in Wormley, serving all of Bristol and surrounding areas. For 10% discount, quote TAP MVS when booking. Hello and welcome to Through Adversity with me, Rich Jones, your glamorous host. I'd like to thank my sponsor, MVS Autos, based in Wormley, Bristol, local friendly garage. And today I'm joined by Dr. Emily Caldicott, who has had an absolutely incredible journey. Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
You too. How's it going?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
We caught up recently and it was really good to see you. And here we are.
Here we are chatting away. So we're going to talk about your journey. I mean, I've had veterans on here before. I've had a couple of veterans. I actually had the privilege of having an MBE the other day, and now I've got a doctor. So I'm feeling really inferior lately with all these really sort of people with these massive academic achievements and members of the British Empire. So I'm just like, just an ex-drug dealer. You're you're
a published author.
And I keep forgetting that part. Yeah, written in crayon. That's fine. So we're going to talk about your journey because it's amazing what you've been through. With this podcast being called Through Adversity, your whole life has been about adversity, hasn't it?
Yeah, in a manner of speaking, yeah.
So what I want to try and do is go back. Let's have a little chat about your childhood first. See what was that like growing up for you?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up in the normal suburbia at first, and then sort of in the countryside. Loving family. My dad was particularly very, very loving. My mum was a bit of a stern old backlatch teacher, the ones that would throw board rubbers at you and twat you with a riding crop kind of thing.
Oh,
so, so very much that disciplinarian sort of little Hitler, yeah, I suppose.
We had a teacher at the same thing called Mr. James, and he was an expert with the board rubber. And what he would do is he wouldn't throw it directly at you. He would launch it as hard as he could, bounce it off your desk, so you get a massive puff of chalk dust, and you get caught with the ricochet as it goes up under your chin. And he'd be, shut up! And he'd launch this blackboard rubber straight at you. Can we call it a blackboard or is it a chalkboard? What do we call it these days?
I don't know. I still call it a blackboard because it's black.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm bored.
Yeah.
So growing up was kind of like loving family, slightly disciplinarian mum. So as a child, what was that like then? In the 80s, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so it was kind of I was born in the late 70s, so
yeah.
So I grew up with a little bit of a problem, which you're aware of.
I'm aware of this call it. You can't call it an elephant in the room, can you? It's just this thing. So, I mean, it's people are already going to start thinking, okay, what is this problem? So if anyone hasn't already figured this one out, which if people know, they would know what this was. What was this problem, Emily?
So I knew from about when I was 4 years old that I wasn't meant to be a boy.
Really?
So, my earliest memories when I was sort of 4 and 5 was praying every night at the foot of the bed to wake up as a girl. And
really?
That was quite obviously a confusing time, I guess, because that's the sort of age developmentally when you start thinking properly about sort of what boys do and what girls do.
Yeah.
And I kind of, I was crap at sports. I've always been crap at sports. I've remained crap at sports. I was very much the theatre queen and a musician and a singer and things. So I was always kind of picked last for the soccer and stuff. And,
so was I, to be fair.
And had no interest. It was one of those things, that when you socialise as a boy, you're expected to do. You're expected to play soccer and things, and I had no interest or ability. So then I kind of went to go and speak to a teacher. I think I was 7, and Mrs. Prey, her name was, and I'd asked. It was PE, so I asked if I could come and play netball with the girls.
Yeah.
And she looked at me. She said, "What?" And I said, "Because I'm a girl, miss. I think I'm kind of wrong here. Like everyone thinks I'm a boy, but I'm not really a boy." She looked at me as you would in those days, like I was insane, and kind of gave me a dressing down and sent me on my way. And at that point, I guess I kind of had to learn to suppress who I was to conform to society.
So when you were sort of, let's say, when you were 4, you said you first started to realise that someone was different. Did you have any siblings at that stage? Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I got a brother.
Your brother. So, kind of like, did you feel different to him? But did you feel like, because he'd want to play, was he older or younger?
Younger.
So, would he want to play sort of boyish games? You just didn't really get into that. How did you sort of
Um,
entertain yourself?
Oh, yeah, it was the 80s. We went out building dens and things like that. Because
Yeah,
we lived in the arse end of nowhere, so
yeah,
it wasn't like we had loads, friends to play with. So for most of that, you'd be out doing camping, and we had horses.
yeah,
So my mother used to buy these crappy horses, and me and my brother, well, mainly me, would school them, bring them, and
yeah,
then you could flog them on. Because I
yeah,
was actually pretty gunny as a horse rider,
yeah,
and then I hated it. I did
yeah.
actually. I hated it because it was one of those things. I'm one of those people. If you tell me to do something, I want to do the opposite.
I see. You're stubborn.
Stubborn old mule bitch that I am.
Yeah,
And yeah, so but we did that, and we would go out on sort of I had this one horse that was ridiculously fast, and
yeah,
take her up the mountain, and she'd kind of, I swear to God, she was like she was on meth the entire time, and she could move, so it was great fun. That was great fun.
yeah,
And we'd fight each other on horseback, which but we fought like cat and dog, like because we're only 3 years
yeah,
apart, so
yeah,
it was fighting cat and dog. And then sort of I went through school, and I breezed the first bit of school,
yeah.
and then the old puberty kind of struck, didn't it? And at
So
that
how did that
point,
affect you then? Because obviously you feeling that you're in the wrong body. How did that feel when things started to develop in a certain way? You thought, fucking hell, here we go.
yeah. So it was kind of worrying, It was when you feel different and you don't know why you feel different, because in those days we didn't have TikTok or YouTube or whatever that you could
No.
um find support. This was pre-internet times and sort of
Yeah.
early internet, so it wasn't, even sort of in the late 90s
Yeah.
is when I first even found out that being trans was a thing. So I
Yeah.
didn't know what I was dealing with, and I didn't have any support. I just thought, you feel all these emotions of shame,
Yeah.
and you kind of, once you hit puberty, you kind of try to, when you're someone like me, you kind of try to man up, basically, which is, I still
So-
couldn't do sport.
yeah.
Um,
Still shit at football.
yeah, still for, I was the lead role in all the school shows, so I could,
Yeah.
I could pull the ladies,
Yeah.
which was kind of embarrassing because I wasn't really interested, but there we go. But it was, again, it's those things you do because it's sort of expected of you, isn't it? And you, because you're trying to be stealthy about, push this thing out of yourself,
Yeah.
it's more, you're doing it for people's expectations as much as anything.
So you fit in some way.
Yeah.
So when you said like you hit puberty and you start to, obviously things start to change, don't they? One of those is your voice. So before that, you could stay fairly feminine, couldn't you, to a degree? As a pre-pubescent boy, you could be quite girly, if you like. But once the voice starts to come in, other aspects of that, sort of the testosterone kicks in, it must have got really difficult to then, you must have been changing and going in a direction suddenly, which you didn't want to go.
Well, I'm kind of lucky, I guess, in some ways, because um, I'm only 5'6", and
Yeah.
I've got size 6 feet, right? And I've got little hands, and I don't really have an Adam's apple. So
Yeah. You've
so
done
I've
all right
kind
there
of,
then.
yes, I've done all right there. So the main things that you get
I'll
clapped
save
for if
some
you're
money.
trans is yeah. Well, they'd have to shave me legs off, wouldn't they, if I was tall? So that was useful. And
Yeah.
I was lucky enough, I guess, to have a high singing voice. I was top tenor, so I could sing
Right.
stupidly high notes.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys have big booming deep voices, and it's like as soon as you put that in a dress, like
Yeah.
it's tough, and people go on about things like puberty blockers, etc., which they are reversible and they buy you time,
Yeah.
so that you can do your social transition and see if you can handle it. Because I mean, actually doing a transition is not an easy thing.
No.
It's you learn a lot about yourself and other people and who your friends are. And to be honest, a lot of the trepidation you have of coming out, to be fair, is mostly in your mind. I think if there is anyone sort of who is somewhere in the Lebitiqua family, then and you're not out yet, I would say that unless you've got particularly sort of religiously kind of people, right wing people in your family or whatever, or that
Yeah.
friends, at the end of the day, if they can't accept you for who you are, then they're not worth having as friends. But you know, it's the family thing, you know. And I could never have told my mum when she was alive, but you know, my dad and brother have been fine.
Yeah, because we're going to talk more about your actual transition a bit later on, aren't we? Because I know that it was, for you, it was quite some time down the road, wasn't it?
To go through the medical transition, yeah.
Yeah. So talking about growing up, so what prompted you to join the forces, knowing that you're sort of going through these sort of like difficult changes, or you're facing these obvious barriers? What made you think about joining the forces?
Well, the testosterone made me think I was invincible, and so I fucked up my exams for university quite spectacularly. So, you know, the good old A levels, totally fucked up.
Really? So no go on those completely?
Yeah, absolutely, no play. And so I kind of needed something to do, I guess, you know. So I didn't really want to go through clearing and go somewhere crap and pay for a degree that wasn't really worth having.
Yeah.
So I wanted to part of this whole manning up thing. So, well, maybe that'll make a man of me.
So did you think still then that you thought you can man this out of you? Did you kind of think that if you just pushed hard enough in a manly direction, you might forget that you think you're a girl?
Yep. Yeah, and you know, that a lot of people say a similar kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess is that denial or is that acceptance? Which one do you think that is? Are you trying to be accepted by someone else, or are you denying the reality?
A little bit of both, I think, because you wouldn't wish being trans on your worst enemy. You know, in your head, it's an absolute clusterfuck.
Yeah.
But the first step really is coming to peace with who you are. You know, so then I wasn't ready for that yet, and so like I said, joined the army. Was in the Green Jackets.
And people don't know the Green Jackets is an infantry unit, which is about as manly as it gets. It's proper bloke's unit.
Yeah, and you know that was great. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. You know, I learned a lot. It beasted a lot of the shit out of me that needed beasting in terms of sort of getting your discipline and getting your life squared away, etc. It was good for that. It worked. You know, I've got great memories of it. Those that I can remember because I wasn't drunk.
You know, that time. So when you went to I mean, everyone that I spoke to who served, I always ask a little bit about basic training, and basic training is hard enough for anyone going into it because you think you're ready, but you're not, are you? How was it for you with this sort of slight element of confusion, or they were trying to man it out of you? How was it? Did you sort of feel like you had something to hide when you were there, or did you feel like it just like, no, this is it, I'll just forget about it and I box it off?
No, I didn't. I compartmentalized it, you know, and I mean, you know, for your first, you know, 6 to 8 weeks of basic were fucking beasting.
Yeah.
and once you've come from a civvy life, you know, particularly if you sort of come from that middle classy kind of background, it's a culture shock, isn't it?
Is it ever? Yeah. Where did you train?
Up Catterick.
Catterick, yeah, always Catterick. The cattle grid, the famous cattle grid up there. Yeah. Oh, terrific. So basic was, would that have been in the 90s then?
Yeah, late 90s. Yeah.
Late 90s, 96. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, 96, yeah.
Yeah, I was out by that. I left in 95. I was already 4 years deep into drug dealing by 96, 95. So you got to unit. So how was army life in general then? So you just cracked on as a squaddy, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you know, and I enjoyed it. You know, like I said, you know, I did my time and I had a good time, you know. Got to see places like Cyprus, Batas, you know.
Batas. So, all right. So this is the question. You've been to Batas. So you would have obviously been to Medicine Hat.
So you cut out there.
I'm guessing you would have been to Medicine Hat if you've been to Batas.
Yeah. So
you've been into all the bars, Cheetahs, O'Reillys, Cadillacs. The sin bin. Did you ever go to the sin bin?
No. I was too polluted too early.
Oh my God. So if anyone's ever heard of it, just Google. There is actually a picture of it. You can Google the Asanaboya Inn is what it was called. And it's full of what we call bin pigs. It was fucking horrendous. It's just going there.
Did you actually go and play Sticker Pig when you were there?
What's that? So I might have known it under a different name.
So basically, it was you had to pull the most disgusting bird in the club. Whoever was, you had to shag them, hence Stick a Pig.
Yeah.
and whoever won got the money because he will put in the money, you know.
Yeah.
And I got, you know, one of my favorite. I can't remember the fuck we were, but
Yeah.
like there was a couple of boys from Milan Platoon decided they were going to play this properly,
Yeah.
and this guy he got this honestly creature. Like I'm not sure. I'm sure she's
she like a Canadian moose.
I could operate on her.
Oh, really? You were more than qualified as a vet.
Yeah. So I took her. No, I didn't. He took her outside. He banged her, and he come back in. She wasn't with him when he came back in, and everyone's like, "Nah, you didn't do it." And then one of his muckers from Milan Platoon got down on his knee, sniffed his cock, and he's like, "Yeah."
Oh God! Yeah, confirmed. Give him the money. Oh my God! And that is perfectly normal squaddy behaviour, isn't it? That's verification. Well, things we used to do. Think about now. It's quite horrible. Is in Cheetahs, which was the strip bar. You go in there and they'd be all on. You go in there in a day and they'd just be sort of half naked women bouncing around. And once the squaddies got drunk, they'd always say, "Oh, if you don't get to flick your loonies at the girls," a loonie was Canadian for $1, and it was just like you throw them from $1 as a tip. And the guys would put the dollar on the side and heat it up with a lighter, and then flick it at the girls so you can get it on their on the nether regions. And they were horrible. Imagine this: a sort of, I won't say red hot, but a really hot dollar landed on your bare skin. Horrible bastards, honestly. And that was for fun. No wonder they hated us. So yeah, so you got to travel the world. You got to travel, and so generally speaking, you fitted in. Then you just managed.
Yeah. I mean, you know, afterwards when I went to uni, I was doing bar work at first, but then I'd ended up. So I did my first degree, which was in chemistry.
Right. So so you've left the forces.
Mm-hmm.
How was coming out of the army? How was that sort of like that we'll call it transition. How was that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was kind of weird because you realise that civvies don't. Because we went in as civvies, you get kind of converted to military life, and then you come out, and it's like, you know, they beast the eye out of you, don't they? That's I remember that. We're gonna beast the fucking eye out of you.
Yeah,
because you're a team. You know, when you deal with civvies afterwards, you're kind of like, I don't understand how you think. Like,
yeah. It's that mentality, isn't it? You can't.
It
never goes, does it?
Nah. No. You know, if you got, you know, eight guys together, you know, all ex-forces, and did the same thing with 8 guys that had never been in the forces.
Yeah.
You know exactly how it would go. You know how you would organise shit, how people would work within that team to get a mission done. You know.
Yeah.
Whereas you see these guys in Civvy Street, and it's just a clusterfuck.
Yeah, completely, and it becomes frustrating, doesn't it? Sometimes when you think this could be done so much easier. Stop fucking around, stop doing this, and just get on with it, and it will be done. And
they're quick to jack, aren't they? You know, it's like
that's it. I'm not doing this.
I've done my bit, so I'm just going to wait for you to. Whereas you know, in the army, if you've done your job, you go and help someone else because we'll all get down to the naffy quicker.
Yeah, we all start drinking a lot quicker than usual.
Yeah.
So that's like. That's the sort of regular, the standard difficulty, isn't it? It's coming out. It is going to be hard adjusting. So people get adjustment disorder. People get all sorts of problems when they come out. So did you go straight into uni then from coming out? Literally, was that your plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you took up.
So because you get extra qualifications, and at the time there was kind of a scheme where they kind of overlook your A-level results because they wanted to get, you know, it was kind of So I got to go to Cardiff to do chemistry.
So did you go straight in for obviously you got to get your BA first or your MA? What did you go for first? Or you go straight to PhD?
So I did a BSc, so Bachelor of Science.
Yeah.
Then after that I went, I worked for about 6 months working in the financial sector doing sort of personal planning shit.
Yeah.
Ironically. And then and I was shit at it because I looked 12. I looked 12 till I was about 35.
Really?
And which was kind of a blessing and a curse, I suppose. And then I went back into chemistry. So I was working in drug research, and to progress in that, you really need a PhD. So I went back to Cardiff again, to the pharmacy school, did pharmaceutical development.
Yeah.
So I was designing new breast cancer treatments.
Oh wow, really? That's interesting. Can you tell us about how that came about then?
Yeah, there was an advert in the New Scientist, the girl who originally started doing the PhD
Yeah.
had some family issue back abroad and she had to leave.
Yeah.
And she'd only been about 3 months into it. So I'd come from, commercial chemistry background doing drug research. I thought this was going to be a piece of piss.
Yeah.
But what you don't have at university that you do have in the commercial thing is all the toys. I had
Yeah.
tiny little Fuma in the uni when I had two big walk-in ones where I was working before,
Yeah.
and you didn't have all the fancy thick shit like microwave reactors and things like that. So it was a bit of a slog just because you didn't have the kit etc to do your job.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got there, and the drug at least worked in principle. So we did this without going into the boring stuff. I proved a lot of the molecular modeling that I'd done beforehand had worked. To make the drug.
Yeah.
And then made it, and then sort of tested it in cell lines etc, and it worked.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Oh wow. So were
yeah,
you still
but
still in a box at this stage as well, still hiding your true identity, or were you starting to sort of?
No, by this time I was out.
Okay, so when did you come out?
I was out by this point, but it was when I was at uni.
Okay.
And because uni's a bit more of an accepting place.
Yeah.
And I'd ended up, funnily enough, I was working the door, and
yeah, you're fucking confusing
right,
me
which
now.
was hilarious.
Yeah,
I know, right? I know. All 5'6" of me, working on the door. But to be fair, being a doorman is not about being,
it's about
a
this,
loose
isn't it?
cannon, 6 foot.
Yeah,
It's all about the gift of the gab.
yeah.
And especially when you send the little ones in, whoever you're dealing with, and you're looking up at them, they're like, "What the fuck does this prick know?"
Something about this, something especially about this. Yeah. So were you at this stage? So were you, when you're doing the door? Were you dressing as a guy or a girl at this stage?
Well, when I was on the door, so I was still kind of sort of in the closet, but I would go out if I wasn't working. Whatever, I'd go out. I started that it was a sort of intermediate transition, if you like. It was a social transition. And a couple of the doormen were gay, and we bumped into them in the gay bar. Didn't even think about it.
Really?
I didn't know that they were gay.
And you went, "Hey!"
Yeah, and they were like, "Are you?" Because and it was like, oh shit.
So can I ask a question? So when did you first put on a dress? Or dress in female clothes, should I say? Do you remember that time?
Yeah, when I was a bit young, I'd always be in drag if I could, for the stage,
I guess
So
you could kind of get away with it a little bit, couldn't you? Sort of like, yeah, I'm in a dress, but no one really knows.
Yeah, exactly right. You kind of like ham it up, but it was like, oh my God, this is super liberating.
I was going to say that. How did it feel liberating? Did you feel properly like, yes, this is it, I feel good?
Yeah, because, I didn't know really how I would go about doing it, But the thing was, it wasn't until I went to uni where I finally had my own space, really.
Yeah.
That I could even sort of buying stuff, etc. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You couldn't go to the theatre. So go to the theatre and just forget. Oh, I just forgot to take my frock off. Sorry, you've had that same dress on for 4 weeks. You're still dressed as Cinderella.
Yeah, but anytime if you're going out on the piss or something that demanded fancy dress, I was always going to be a girl.
Yeah.
So
sorry,
I learned how to do makeup and stuff by that point.
Yeah. So things like learning.
Go on. What was I saying?
Yeah. So you say things like. So you got to university, a bit more freedom, you were saying?
Yeah, so you got the freedom. Obviously uni is a bit of a more accepting kind of place.
Yeah.
I guess, So that kind of made it a bit more easy. It wasn't like I could go, I was going to go full time.
Yeah.
Because the thing is in those days, there was still some stigma, and you wondered, particularly if you're going for some kind of professional role, you're always worried about what the effect is going to be. Is this going to like totally fuck up my life?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, people don't just go, I just want to be a girl now. It's a process of if you take that plunge and actually come out, and then even more so when you do full-time transition and medical transition and surgical stuff, you're invested at that point, and you're taking a heck of a risk, and it's not something you do lightly. So this idea that, oh, the guy wants to just put a dress on and fiddle women in toys. Like, well, one, we're all in private cubicle. Two, That's a hell of a lot of work when you could just like bang them on the head and drag them down a path, you know?
Yeah,
So what do you think I'm doing in this? Like knocking one out while sniffing the seat?
exactly. You know what I mean? It's like this is what gets me. I mean,
You were
do,
stunned then.
yeah. Well, it makes me laugh because although I can understand why some people might get upset, but don't you think that there's a lot of very overt trans people out there giving people that just want to go through the transition quietly under the radar, giving them a really bad fucking
Mm-hmm.
name, and I think that's unfair on people like yourself who want to transition quietly. You don't want the noise, you don't want the racket, you don't want
Yeah.
to wave the flags around. You just want to be you, don't you?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to the story. So I finished that PhD and I was wondering what I was going to do. I don't want to talk about the sort of the stuff that happened, you know, with my mum.
Yeah.
But basically I ended up going to vet school. So it's a long story short, I went to vet school.
Hence operating on this rather large lady in Canada.
Yeah, and as these things go,
Yeah.
you know, compared to doing a degree in chemistry, doing vet school, like both selection for it and then once you're actually in selection, turns out to be the easy part.
Yeah.
It's like doing, I reckon, P company or SAS selection. You know, it is
So
fucking
you just
hard.
spent years in getting a PhD in chemistry. How long was that? 5-6 years? And then you just go off the back of that.
3 years. No,
3 years. So it's still
3 years
long time.
in the lab, and it takes you about a year to work it. Yeah.
And then straight into vet school. What? How quickly was that? Literally within
straight into vet school.
Fucking hell.
God.
And that was a proper beasting on the brain.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. It's the sheer volume of stuff that you've got to know.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't get, when you do an ordinary degree, you get, you know, a grade, you know, first 2-1, 2-2, whatever. You don't get that in vet because it's the pass mark is so high for all the exams, you know, because if you're, you know, treating an animal, doing surgery, so you kind of got to know what you're doing. So there is a minimum standard. I can't remember. I think it was like 65 or 70%, something like that.
Yeah, because if you're not hitting that, you're not fit to practice, are you? I guess.
Correct. Yeah.
So vet school. So
yeah, and I had.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so I was kind of I wanted to do equine and smallies, and so I had no interest in farm animals. You know, C's get degrees, but you still had to put the work in to get them. And me being me, I was a stroppy little shit though I was. Pig production. Oh my God, it's awful. It's an awful fucking paper. And we had this. I kind of didn't bother going to the lectures. I was just going to cram the reading material and sit the exam. But you have these things in vet school called strategic SAPs. Well, they're just called SAPs, but we call them strategic SAPs. So you study hard for the subjects you wanted to do. So small animals for me and an equine. And you'd have like small animal surgery, small animal medicine, etc., right?
Yeah.
And so you kick the arse out of them. You go, I'm just going to do the supplementary exam, resit in the summer holidays sort of thing. So I didn't even fucking read the book for the exam. And I'd gone in and I just wrote on the exam paper. And this becomes relevant because it's all about, you know, doing factory farming of pigs. And it's wrong. It is, you know, it's bad. And I wrote the answer to the first question, which was something like, you're in a factory production facility, high intensity facility, and this thing happens, this disease outbreak, what do you do? And my answer, fucking hell, was I wouldn't do anything because I wouldn't be there, because as far as I'm concerned, forcing vets to learn how to do intensive farming practices in pigs is directly equivalent to teaching a medical student how to run Auschwitz. Then I wrote, see you in January for my strategic SAP. Love me. Right?
And that was your answer.
I sat there for and I just sat there. I didn't even look at the rest of the paper. I sat there for like, the half hour that you had to sit there before you could leave the exam hall. And then I got up and walked down. I'm looking around and like everyone's going like, you crazy fucker, what have you done now? And I was like, you know, and anyway, I'd forgotten about it. And it's the middle of the summer holidays, and my mate, he was a lecturer, he was a parasitology lecturer, he was British. And we used to drink together outside of work because I was obviously older. And he rings me and he's like, what? the fuck have you done? And I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
racking through my brain because I probably have fucked up something there. I was like, what? I don't know. And he was like, oh God, you do not know how much shit you're in. I was like,
Really?
what have I done? Yeah, so he explained to me what I had done.
Yeah.
And he's like, we've just spent the last hour deciding your fate. I was like, oh fuck. It's like I was this close to getting fucking RTU'd from fucking vet school.
Oh wow. So it wasn't just a case of like a slight bollocking, it could have ruined it.
Oh yeah. The dean wanted to be booted.
No way.
The thing is that the reason it took him an hour of listening, of discussion, was I was he at the time, so they were like, well, he's right. What he says is completely right, and they had this massive fucking row about it. And in the end, they said they were going to get one of the cool lecturers to go like, you've got to go and apologise to him. So Nick Cave, he called me in his office. He said, you need to go and apologise to.
Yeah.
I can't even remember his fucking name.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I didn't do anything. Like, I was right. I haven't done anything technically wrong. And he's like, yeah. He said, but the thing is, he said. Oh, the bit I forgot to mention, right, was this guy that I had to go and see hadn't taught the paper, but he was the convener of the paper. He'd been on a sabbatical in America.
Yeah.
He's fucking Jewish, isn't he?
Oh,
so I just gone on about Auschwitz, and it's fucking Jewish.
Oops.
It's like,
oh dear.
Yeah. So I was like, oh no. And so anyway, I had to go and apologise to him. So I knocked on the door, and this guy had the biggest freaking office in all of vet school, bigger than the deans and everything, right? I go in, I swear he was on one of these high back swivel chairs, right? He's looking out the window. And when he turned around, all he needed was a cat,
I was like a Bond villain.
I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, like a Bond villain. Like massive, big, bloody desk thing. And I was like, oh yeah. I said, I think you might know me.
Yeah.
I said, we haven't met. I never went to the lectures, but you were teaching it anyway. He said, oh yeah. And I said, well, I've come to apologise. If I offended you, like that typical non-apology. And he's like, uh-huh. And I said, however, I stand by every word that I wrote. I said, the whole course is shite. I said, and and he's like, okay, yeah. And I said, I lied at this, but I said, I've given up like eating bacon and stuff, because it's that bad. He's like, okay, yeah. And I said, John, I didn't know you were fucking Jewish, bro. Anyway, so he kind of chuckled a bit.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, that's all fair enough. That's all fair enough. He said, but you've got to go and in fifth final year, which was obviously the next year, you've got to go to a pig farm, and see all this. You've got to go there for a day. I was like, yeah, I can't say I'm looking forward to it. And he said, oh, okay. He said, well, how about you put off your assessment of the pig industry till you've actually seen it with your own eyes. I said, that sounds fair enough.
Yeah.
And I said, in my defense, I said, how much, because they have this group of they call SAFE. It's kind of like PETA, but it's about animals, animals being used in farming, It's all hippie birds with hairy armpits and legs, and they then they stand outside the vet tower as it was then, like with the
banners
waving, and everyone just ignores them.
Yeah,
but no one takes the blindest bit of notice of them. And I said, those people in SAFE, they don't have any effect. He was like, no. And I was like, except me, I had the entire school discuss animal welfare for an hour. and he's like, oh yeah. I said, so who's more effective? And he's me being a little bit of an arse.
Yeah.
All these girls hanging outside the front, vegans. And he's like, yeah, that's a fair point, that is. Like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So we ended up getting on super well.
You're honest, I guess.
Fucking awful. I told him. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
But the thing was, at the end of final year, you have this thing called the steeplechase, where it's kind of, you go station to station, and you got to do like pregnancy diagnose 10 cows in a row. You got to get them all right, and then you got to do like this half PM post-mortem, like lambs. You got to say what they've died of, all this kind of thing, And there's a pig one, and it's not a practical thing. He sat there and he sees me walking around the corner, and he's on his little desk thing, and he sees me, and he's like, he said, I got something super special for you. I was like, oh, great. And he said, he pulls up this picture, right? Laminated picture. And he said, what's that? And I said, oh, I hope you're not going to ask me the breed. He said, no, species is fine. I said, it's a pig. And he went, brilliant. There's your C. Right. Do you want to go for a C+? I was like, oh, go on then. And he asked me some question about bloody tuberculosis I had no fucking idea about. And he was like, Oh, well, see, it is. Catch you later.
So he give you a C then?
Yeah, give me my C, yeah. Because
Yeah.
he made me promise that I would never treat a pig in my whole career, and I stuck to my promise. I've never
That's
treated
fair
a pig.
dues, isn't it? So you got through vet school then in the end.
Yeah, yeah. First, so I didn't get back squad. So you could get back squadded.
Yeah.
So if you fail your supplementaries, then you get back squadded a year. But I got through, so it's 5 years. Everyone thinks it's 7, but it's not. It's 5. It's only 7 if you fuck up twice.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
And then I worked in racehorse medicine.
Okay, what was that like?
That was really good. That was really good. It's high intensity, it's there's a whole lot of stuff that happens that you'd never know about. So kind of the breeding is all a big thing, and then the yearlings have to be x-rayed, all their limbs have to be x-rayed to make sure they haven't got the early stages of arthritis.
Yeah.
And they got these little bone chips, you have to knock them out in a clean room where they have arthroscopy to take the things out. So I became an anaesthetist, because knocking a horse out is dangerous, and it's they tend to die under anaesthetics. You have to really know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's not good, is it, for the racehorse?
Then there was the actual races themselves.
Yeah.
No, not so good for the racehorse. But then you actually at the races, there's the officiating vet, so swabbing the horses, and actually if they have a breakdown, you've got to go and treat them, that kind of thing. And the horses, the whole thing with the races going, the horses are being abused. It's like, no, that's their thing. Like,
yeah,
the ones that make it in racing, they're all batshit insane. That's what they do, and they love it. They love a good run out. It's like sprinters for humans.
Yeah.
You could say Linford Christie. Oh my God, it's so bad that he runs. And it's like, no, he wants to, and these horses are exactly the same.
Yeah, they're not being. I mean, they're just being encouraged to run faster, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do what they do. So you've
but
had
these horses are athletes.
So you've had a sort of like crazy life then. So growing up, put it in a box. Put the girl in the box, keep her in there as long as you can. Now, sort of during the uni days, you were beginning to sort of come out a little bit and sort of be more yourself. Were you starting to feel better in yourself the more you came out?
Yeah, absolutely. And people were cool about it. I had the first kind of few times, I did have a drag hack, that taught me stuff that you would have learned when you were a teenager, but you didn't get to. So that kind of helped speed you along a bit. So my nose. And then I guess you become more confident, and by this time there was YouTube and things, and there was really good tutorials on there, etc. And then it was lockdown. So lockdown happened, and I was working in I was a locum vet, so I'd go around different practices that needed cover for whatever reason, usually because they were just short staffed. And so I was doing a bit mix of equine and smallies. And when we had the lockdown, you were only allowed to do emergency work, so all the locums just got binned. And at that point, I was like, and I really suffered in lockdown because I was on my own. And it was bad. It was bad times, because obviously I didn't have money coming in, and I was broke. So I kind of went into designing a prescription thing for the vet market, which was fine. But I also decided that now's the time if I'm going to do it, because I was ready to pull the pen, I was ready to, slot myself. And at that point, I was like, fuck it, in for a penny, in for a pound, and I just went for it.
So you went for full transition.
So then I transitioned.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is, for sake of yourself, we're going to sort of finish this episode now. What we're going to do is we're going to have a part 2 with some of your friends with us, aren't we? Okay, so what we're going to do is...
Yeah, so that's kind of like, I guess I was just going to kind of explain what that idea entails. So, people, because I spent a lot of time, rather than being, because I hate these ones that preach on about sort of your trans rights and all this kind of thing, which is fine, but they kind of do it in an arsey way. Yeah. But my thing was to actually tell people about it, because people just don't know and they don't understand it. Yeah. Because even we don't understand it. We don't know why we're like this. Yeah. And kind of just help them to understand. And that was the best thing that I could have done. And now people are absolutely fine. Yeah. Where I live, really supportive. And so I've just got some of my friends coming to just tell you if you're interested, what people who are gone through that transition with me, because it's not just me that transitions, it's the people around me that have to transition as well and get used to, they've known me as so-and-so, and now they dealing with me.
Yeah.
And it's a lot to get their head around, and you can't just keep going at people. Oh, my pronouns are, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, so they've been super good. They've got to learn. And now that, if someone came into the pub and was being all transphobic, if they were a girl, the girls would batter them, and if it was the blokes would batter them, so
yeah, I imagine they're really protective friends because they've seen the difficulties that you've been through, but I guess that's friends, isn't it? Emily, look, thank you so much for sharing with us what you have done so far, and we'll be back for the part 2. I just want to thank my sponsor, MVS Autos, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.